Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth and fancy seeing you here in June. A very welcome, my friends, and especially my enemies. Come in, sit down, no touching. I don't do the touching. I'm McMeanish. You can continue the conversation over on Twitter at Movies TV Mad, and we can talk, we can banter, we can talk geek. But just breaking right now, Tom Welling will join Arrowverse in this year's Crisis on Infinite Earth as Clark Kent. The big question is, will he finally suit up as Superman? Is this why he's doing it? Because he thinks he owes us something? I'm not sure he does, but it's massive. Look, there's no bigger Smallville fan out there than me. That sounds very hubris of me, doesn't it? Very hubris of me, very arrogant of me. I was obsessed with this show. I'm still obsessed with this show. But let's be clear. Our Miles and Tom Welling for 10 years gave Smallville a special legacy. I don't want Guggenheim and Berlanti to mess that legacy up. So I'm as excited as everyone else, but I'm also concerned what they're going to do with him in this episode. Smallville comes from a time when TV was made to entertain, to compel audiences. It wasn't about political moralizations. And this is the difference between Arrowverse shows and Smallville. Smallville achieved much more than anyone who first watched the pilot episode that ironically was titled Pilot could have ever imagined, right? It achieved so many things. It gave us so many DC characters. It got absolutely right the journeys of Clark Kent, Lex Luthor, Lois Lane, three iconic DC characters. It was a beautiful show, very emotional, very well made, right? Smallville was, of course, not perfect. Nothing made by human hands is, but it was a beautiful show. I still think it's the greatest DC show ever made and one of the greatest interpretations of the Superman myth and legend. But what is he going to be doing in this? Now, a couple of years ago, he had a suggestion of how he could be in Arrowverse, and it was pretty much Grant Gustin's The Flash running so fast he comes into another universe and quickly runs past him as he's working on the farm. And that was basically it. So, are we getting excited over nothing? Could this be the quickest of cameos? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. And as I asked at the beginning, is he going to put the suit on? We know he's playing Clark Kent. That's one thing we know. That's what we've been told. He's playing Clark Kent. So it hasn't been confirmed that he's going to wear the costume. He was resistant to wearing the costume in Smallville for 10 years. He wouldn't even wear it for the finale, which I don't agree with. He definitely should have suited up in that finale. While the show was active, I didn't have any problem with him wearing the red jacket and the flannel and all that. That was great. That was what Smallville was. But in the finale, it was wrong for him not to do so. He obviously thought he was going to hurt his reputation and his future acting jobs. But, I mean, once you play Superman, you're Superman. Now, Tom Welling may have just played Kal-El and Clark Kent, but he was Superman. He had superpowers. He was using them to fight supervillains. He was Superman. He was everything in personality and character that Superman should be. It was a terrific performance, and what Al Miles and Kelly and Brian did with the show was beautiful. And as I say, I don't want that legacy ruined. I don't trust these creatives. I do not trust the Arrowverse creatives at all. This isn't going to be a long video. This was just me breaking the news for you, just in case you haven't heard, that Tom Welling will play Clark Kent in this year's Arrowverse's crossover Crisis on Infinite Earths. Of course, that is massive news. But of course, Michael Rosenbaum himself, while him and Tom were at a convention, when Michael was asked if he was reprising his role, he said, "No, I'm not, but Tom is." And we all thought that was a joke. And Tom says, "I don't know anything about this." Of course, he did. He is going to be in it. That's official now. So, of course, as a massive Smallville fan, as a Superman fan, as a DC fan, I'm excited to a point. But as I say, I'm also concerned how they're going to portray Clark Kent. As Guggenheim rightly said, and as Stephen Amell himself said, Without Smallville, there would never have been an Arrowverse. Smallville set the page for these shows. I personally think that Smallville is so much superior to Arrowverse. I think Arrowverse lost its way, really, from the third season of Arrow, the third season of The Flash. Smallville had consistency for its whole decade. It was a beautiful show, and it was made for the people who loved it. That's the difference. It was compelling, telling the character-driven story of how Clark Kent will one day become Superman, how Lex Luthor, who has a friendship with Clark Kent in this show, finally becomes the megalomaniac who is Lex Luthor. They told character stories, and they did it with panache, and they did it with class. So I don't want that legacy ruined. So is it exciting? Of course, many Smallville fans right now will be jumping for joy. And I wish I was 100% excited like you. But I know these creatives. I know what they've done to Superman. We've seen it already with Tyler Hoechlin's Superman. We saw what they did with last year's crossover, right? It wasn't great. And I think many Superman fans would agree with that. But this is an opportunity to have Tom back as this character. And that does excite me. But I don't want the legacy of this fabulous show messed up. But will Michael Rosenbaum return as well? With Tom returning, it is that question. Now, John Glover, who played Lionel Luthor, has actually said he would absolutely bite Guggenheim's and Berlanti's hands off to be part of this crossover. So you never know, Glover may return. We mustn't be greedy, but I think if Rosenbaum returned as Lex Luthor, that would be massive. But will it happen? Nobody knows right now. But for now, Tom Welling will play Clark Kent in Crisis on Infinite Earths. And whether I'm concerned about that and a little bit excited, it is really, really massive news. And everybody, my friends, is talking about it.